Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dream Show. I'm your host Manuj Aggarwal, and today we'll be talking with Peter Oncken. So Peter is the managing director of INTRO Aviation, the parent company of Corsair, a long-haul specialist French airline based in Rungisand, based at Paris Airport. Corsair has been chosen by
Rungis.
more. Sorry.
Rungis is it's south of Paris. Rungis.
Okay. So my French pronunciation, I need to work on that for sure. So Corsair has been chosen by more than 1 million passengers every year since 1981. Peter leads all airline investment acquisition projects, manages the airline investment personally, along with his highly skilled team. As an accomplished lawyer, Peter has profound expertise of 16 years in the aviation industry with a focus on strategy, restructuring, and turnaround processes, strategic planning and corporate development, cost reduction programs, efficient group structures and governance, turnaround planning, management, spin-off strategy, as well as analysis and feasibility evaluations of startups. Prior to acquisition of Corsair, of which he's the chairman, Peter served as non-executive chairman of Ireland's CityJet Limited. He also actively managed and turned around LTU International Airlines, Fly Next Airlines, served as a board member at DBA, and invested in the ongoing South Korean low-cost career project AeroK, which INTRO Aviation advises exclusively. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, so you've had a very impactful, illustrious career in the aviation industry. So how did it all start? Well, I know a little bit of background, but I would like to dive a little bit deeper. So you went from law to aviation, and there's an interesting story behind it. Can you share that with us?
Well, yeah, I studied law in Germany, and honestly, I never wanted to be a lawyer. I am a lawyer, but I never really practiced law as a lawyer. So I really studied studied law because I wanted to go into business. I didn't really know how and in which direction it would take me, but it was clear for me that I wanted to make a difference in business, and not as a lawyer just advising other people or companies. Mm-hmm. So I had my first jobs, which were far away from the aviation industry, by the way, but I had very good mentors. And these jobs were actually very much focused on restructuring. So this is actually how I really entered the field of restructuring, managing change processes, managing cost reduction processes, and modernization, and you name it. And at some point of time, when I already moved here to Nuremberg, where we actually based with our headquarters, I was asked to take over and run a company which was providing software solutions for the aviation industry. And so I had no idea about software. I had no idea at that time about the aviation industry, but nevertheless, I liked challenges. And so I entered it as a managing director, and just a couple of days following my entry as a managing director, actually I found out that the company was broke. So at the brink of insolvency. So I called the shareholders together and said, listen, either we close it down or we have to recapitalize it. And again, at that point, I didn't really know what we were talking about with regard to strategy, software, airlines, and so on and so forth. So the major shareholder, told me, listen, Peter, if you're really convinced in this company, I will fund it, but I want you to fund it too. Because if you're really convinced to do that, then join me. Well, honestly, I didn't really have the means to fund it at that time. And my gut feeling was that it not only interested me to see this company develop, but I got to know people who actually convinced me within the company that there was a reason to exist for this existence for this company. Right. And I said, okay, then I told the shareholder, listen, I'm ready to do that, but then you have to lend me the money.
I see.
Okay, I'll do that. So this is how I became the shareholder. And this is how I actually entered the entrepreneurial life in this field of, let's say, further aviation.
Mm.
So actually, I got to know some software. These were software solutions provided for the operational and financial segment of the airline industry. And I started to really understand how airlines work, because you have to know that airlines effectively is a sum of a lot of systems working and interact together, apart from the fact that you have a lot of people and you have aircraft and all that. But effectively, it's a huge, complex collaboration of systems. And so this is I understood how it worked. I started with let's say the repositioning, restructuring of the company. We widened the customer base. I got more and more in depth of understanding how actually the business worked, and that was all in early 2000.
Wow.
At that point, the wider group of the company acquired DBA. DBA was in those days the German affiliate of Deutsche BA,
Okay.
of German affiliate of British Airways,
British
which was
Airways,
Deutsche BA. And British Airways wanted to get rid of it because it had never been profitable. It was at those days a pretty mess, and so they wanted to close it down because it didn't work out for them. And the group said, okay, we will do that. We will run the company. And INTRO these days was, let's say, Softec these days, that was the company, the software company, was, let's say, at the far end of this whole group. And I was then asked to join the board of DBA. So actually, I got to understand a little bit more and more how the business worked, and I was actually very close then in the processes of understanding more and working closely with the people in the process of restructuring. Actually, DBA worked pretty well, because after 15 months of restructuring, we got it back to, well, actually not back, we got it to profitability.
Oh, nice.
Something the company never had experienced in the 12 years before.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, well, then I was still running the software company, and then I was asked by the chairman of the INTRO group, who, by the way, is also my father-in-law, and he was a very good mentor for me. Mm-hmm. He asked me if I would be interested to acquire LTU. LTU in those days was number 3 in Germany, was a long-haul, medium-haul carrier. We were, the company flew a fleet of 26 aircraft, long range and medium range. And I said, well, yeah, why not? Why not? But what I really, I then managed the whole process of negotiation and well, I thought I was running the process of actually acquisition. What I didn't really know that he wanted me to run the company then after we successfully took it over. So that actually happened. So he asked me to actually join the management team. And well, then this was really very cold water, because we were talking about 2,300 employees, and I coming in, knowing quite some things, but it actually helped me a lot, because I came with a blank sheet of paper, and we actually pretty quickly knew what to do. And I was never a friend of those who always say, well, there's a strategy how you have to follow it, there is a way how to do it. I think you have to think out of the box.
Yeah.
Eventually, you really always have to do it, because otherwise you will end up making the same mistakes others have done before. And so that happened. And actually, we also there did a pretty good job. It was a highly loss-making company at those days. We within a year, actually, then we pretty much got it to break even. And so there was these bunch of companies we were dealing with, and it was really learning on the job in a high-speed process. But I learned a lot, and I keep learning a lot. And then eventually we sold, the group sold both companies to Air Berlin, which unfortunately quite a number of years later, I think is not existent anymore because it failed. So, but totally different reasons. But it was a great learning process for me, and I think this also drove me in the understanding that actually you have to be bold enough to be an entrepreneur, to really, or think as an entrepreneur, think as if it is your money. You are working with, and that really helped a lot.
That's
and
awesome.
it was, and it's a constant process, honestly. Since then we kept on being involved in a number of airlines you mentioned before, until today, where we are in a huge mess internationally, with the COVID crisis now strangling pretty much every airline. And the same with Corsair, obviously, because without state aid and eventually new shareholders, there's no way that this crisis can be managed.
That's a fascinating story, very inspiring. Just to summarize, it sounds like you already had a passion for entrepreneurship, and you obviously went into legal route, but then you kept pursuing that passion, and with the help of mentors and opportunities that came along, you continued to drive your career towards that, and eventually met that goal. So that's just a very deep lesson for anybody listening, that if you pursue your passion and continue to look for those opportunities and learn from mentors, anything is possible, right?
And be open-minded.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, honestly, I'm not coming from an entrepreneurial family. My family are historians and all sorts of people, but no entrepreneurs. So actually, you have to be open. You have to be also bold with yourself. You have to be ready if an opportunity arises to just grab it. If your gut feeling is good,
exactly,
you have to listen to yourself.
Amazing. Now let's talk about one thing that you mentioned, that British Airways is a giant of a company, and they have so much experience, but even when they run a company, they cannot get it profitable. Like, what are some of the challenges, like common themes that you see in larger companies, maybe airlines, maybe other industries, where they have all the resources, they have all the experience, they have a market, they have a product, and everything that is needed for a successful business is there, but still they cannot generate profit, which is quite puzzling to a lot of entrepreneurs. Can you share any insights, what you have noticed?
Okay, well, in all fairness, British Airways, at least before the crisis, has been a profitable company, as has Lufthansa, and so on and so forth. There's indeed, nevertheless, of the fact that they are doing a pretty good job. Otherwise, they were not there where they are. But I keep saying that I think they could do far better, because the problem is, these companies are like huge tank ships, which if you want to change a direction slightly, the efforts you have to make, the power you have to put into the convincing of management, even lower management, to take a different direction is huge. And the problem is that these companies, the huge companies, they have bred their own people. They grew within this company.
Yeah.
And what I really see is that the lack of willingness to get people in the organization to think out of the box. They do say that they do that, and I also believe that they are doing it. But the problem is for those people to really be able to change things, the organization is simply too big. Because you're fighting against so many people who continue to say, well, we have always been doing it like that. Look, we have been successful, and by the way, our route profitability on this or that route has been so good. Why should we do it better? Everybody understands that things have to change. We have a big movement since I would say since the last 10 years. In order for the industry to get more, to be more resilient to challenges of the market. We have a very fragmented market. We have so much in legislation, in regulation, affecting this industry. So the industry is responsive, but these large companies have to take huge effort and huge steps to meet these processes. And look, the issue of digitization in this industry is getting, let's say, more important by the day.
Yeah.
And smaller organizations, or I would say, let's say, organizational or people like us, we see it, we define what needs to be done, and we implement it.
Yeah.
So I think it's far easier for people like us, also with own companies, to really try to cleverly define what needs to be done and do it.
Yeah.
And not to end up in meetings and discussing. Well, you have to win the people.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah, you have to convince people, and normally this is not such a big issue because people understand what the benefits are. But in these larger organizations, where do you want to start? To start with,
Yeah.
whom you want to talk? Is it top down? Is it bottom up? So I think these are the problems for these large companies, that the efforts to change things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as you said earlier, it's even the point about being open-minded applies to large organization as much as it applies to an individual, because as you said, like the red tape and the bureaucracy that sort of seeps in over decades closes their minds to new ideas, I guess.
Absolutely.
Cool. And now let's talk about, as you were mentioning, this crisis that we are going through, and airline is one of the most affected industries because of the pandemic. So what is your read on situation? How are things going industry-wide? Do you think travel is going to come back quickly, or is it going to take some time?
Look, we are experiencing unprecedented situation here. We are experiencing something unheard of. I think not even Hollywood could have imagined a situation. Not only the airline industry. Look at the hospitality industry. Look at theaters. Look at there's so many industries, so many areas of businesses worldwide. Really, we are talking not about regional problems. We are talking about a worldwide problem. There is no blueprint for it. So, and this situation overcame the industries in a speed which was unheard of. Yeah. I remember that with Corsair, I still remember that in January we were still talking about the virus in China, which, well, we were at least hoping that it would be contained in China, because they did a lot of efforts to close down the country effectively.
Yeah.
Honestly, we thought, okay, it might have some effect to worldwide travel, but that 6 weeks later, we were seeing ourselves in a situation where we had to ground the business.
Yeah.
This is for months. Corsair was grounded from mid-March to mid-June.
Yeah.
And so this company, even though we are heavily affected because we are flying long haul, is rather small. So you would assume that this is something which at least is somewhat controllable. Well, it is not. And now just look at the larger companies with, I don't know, a fleet of 10 to 20 or even above that, a little bit larger companies than ours, or forget about the really large ones. The effect which it has on costs, there are no revenues effectively. So you have your bookings for people who wanted to fly during the time of pandemic or during the time of the lockdown. Well, you have to refund everybody, and you have to do it. That's law. So not only did you get money, which you actually were supposed to give back, and this is something which is it's highly messy. So well, obviously it didn't go without the government's support in each and every country. No, I'm not sure where how it looks like in the other parts of the world, but I see in North America there's at least until now there was a strong support from the government. In Europe, in Germany, we have it. In France, we have it. In I guess in other regions as well. But the point is, what is the rationale behind it? Yeah, obviously, travel and flying is something very essential to mankind because people want to move, and so there's a right to exist, for a right of existence for these airlines going forward. But the problem is nobody knows how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost in the long term, how people are going to, let's say, resume flying, if at all. What is the effect on short haul traffic? What is the effect on medium haul or long haul? So we will have dramatic changes going forward. I think behavior of customers is changing already. We see it. The issue of home office is essential. So I guess that short haul traffic will not really resume anymore. People understand that either there are different means of travel, or there's no need to travel at all. For medium haul, it's a little bit different because I guess that at some point the corporate business will resume again. At least once the vaccines are there and some methods of containing the virus. But well, then again, long haul traffic, I'm pretty sure that it will resume because people want to travel. Leisure travel will resume, and I'm also pretty sure that unless we are talking about, let's say, standard meetings like board meetings and so on, these board meetings or similar meetings obviously can be done by home office, or at least digital, with digital means. But there are other interactions with people. You want to talk strategy, you want to talk joint ventures, you want to negotiate a company acquisition. This is something you cannot do via digital means. So at some point, people will travel again. And the good thing is people forget as well. I'm pretty sure that looking 5 years ahead, in 5 years, we will look back and say, okay, it was a huge mess. The industry will have adapted. We will have some changes in travel, but ultimately we will come back to how people used to lead their life. And I think this is also something we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like the desire to travel and explore and experience new new places is not going to go away. That is inherent in us. But as you said, like some behavior may change and there may be short-term changes. And you brought up a point about government support, and we were talking a little bit about this before that as well. Do you think the governments across the world are doing enough, and they are coordinating enough to give some clear support to the airlines industry?
Look, let me say this. I think the governments reacted very good in the way how to resolve the situation on the short term. I think the willingness of the governments to support the industry was exceptional and quick. This really has to be said. If you ask me what lessons have been learned or not learned, even though, again, I repeat myself, but there's no blueprint. We haven't experienced, or we haven't seen this before. And what I really see as a major obstacle and really a major problem for the industry is the uncoordinated behavior of governments. We see this situation, I'm just talking about Europe, where we are right now. You would assume that European countries would be willing to interact, to coordinate travel, let's say the path of travel. You would assume that sanitary measures are always and everywhere the same. The restrictions should be at least with the same approach. We don't see any of that. And this is really a big problem, not only for the airlines, ultimately also for the customers. Because honestly, they don't really know what are the expectations, what do I need to do in order from getting from A to B. Do I have to get a test before? Is it sufficient if I go without a test and then go into a quarantine for 14 days or whatever? No, there is no coordinated approach. And then we have countries which are still totally locked down, where you cannot enter unless you have, if you look, for instance, Europe, US, I think Canada as well. There are strong limitations to those who can enter at all. So this is a huge problem, and there is, I would say, the demand cannot be loud enough to really emphasize the need for a coordinated approach. And because this is creating an additional mess which the industry does not need in these circumstances we are finding ourselves right now.
So it seems like, earlier what we were talking about, how large companies are at that disadvantage because they cannot move faster. It seems like this problem of coordinating response from governments is even bigger a problem, because we have to convince so many more people and bring them onto the same page.
But look, everybody is afraid of getting the virus or additional numbers. You look into the news in the morning, and the first thing you see is a strange number of new cases popping up. Nobody really knows in which relation these cases are saying. There is a sense of alarm, which at some point is also okay, which I fully understand, because it is alarming what we are experiencing here. But there is no rationality in this whole discussion. And also, when we discuss about expectations on governments, on regulators, and so on and so forth, what needs to be done in order to facilitate travel, to make it easier under the restrictions, obviously, of let's say sanitary needs in the aircraft, on the ground, and so on.
That's great. Your insights are really spot on. Now let's ask one sort of generic question, because you have been responsible for turning around so many companies and sort of seeing the opportunity where others have missed it. And a lot of people right now are going through similar situations with their own businesses. Some of them, they have brick and mortar stores or restaurants or what have you. Some of them are trying to move their businesses online. Some of them are trying to start a business. So what are some of the insights you can share? What should people do to turn around their businesses? How can they thrive or survive in this climate, even though they may be out of ideas, or they're looking for some help? What can we say to them?
Look, perhaps I can share with you, let's say, our approach when we look into businesses which are brought to us in terms of an investment, of partnering, and so on. So, and usually these businesses are in a distressed state. They are not healthy, otherwise they would not come to us. So when we really look into distressed companies, and by the way, the same questions also refer to startup businesses.
Yeah.
There are actually three questions we ask ourselves. Number one is, does the company have a right to exist in view of competitive environment, in view of market needs, in view of demand? And you don't really have to go so deep to understand what these are. It is a very generic approach we take. Does it have a right to exist? For instance, I don't know, you can imagine eventually that we always get a number, perhaps these might increase now, a number of proposals to invest in an airline or acquire in an airline. And 99 out of 100, we say no, because there is a good reason why this company is in distress.
I see.
Because honestly, in the environment today, there's no need. We simply have had, at least, let's talk about the time before the crisis.
Yeah.
We had too much capacity in the market. It was a fact. Everybody knew that. And nevertheless, there was always the requirement or the demand to save a company, which it's absolutely normal, and I fully understand that. But the question is, does it have a right to exist if you have, let's say, 3 or 4 competitors in the market, which are healthy, which have a good product, which have, let's say, a good reputation, and so on and so forth. So still, if you come to the conclusion that it might have a reason to exist, then we come to the next questions. What are the USPs, the unique selling points? And there have to be USPs, because you have to stand out against your competition. There has to be either, if we talk about airlines, either you have a very strong positioning at a specific airport, which is strong, where you have slots which are highly valuable and where you can really generate traffic, then okay, that's a USP. Or you hardly have any competition because nobody really dared to go into a specific market, then okay, you have another USP, and so on and so forth. So if you have a USP, then you have to ask yourself the third question: is the USP relevant enough to build a valuable, or let's say a reasonable business around them? So these, and if you come to a conclusion with, or if you can answer all these 3 questions with either yes or with a, let's say, a reasonable answer, then okay, then you can really take the step and look deeper and say, okay, this is something which is really interesting. By the way, we have always done that, be it Corsair. Corsair had still has obviously a very, very strong positioning at Orly Airport. Close to Rungisand, what you just said. And so this is very important, because Orly is a very highly regarded airport in Paris and France. And it really made sense for us to really develop the market out of that airport. So it was really an important USP. And then you can build it. You can start to build it around that, because everything else is state of the art. Every airline, I'm talking about airlines now. Every airline has aircraft.
Yeah.
They have people, good people. Most of them have really good people. They have a good brand. They have a strategy. This is, every airline has to have that.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the USPs. What are the points which really separate you from the others? And this is and I think this is something which you really can apply to all different businesses.
Exactly.
Because at some point you have to really make a difference to those who have a similar offer, a similar product, whatever. You have to stand out.
Yeah.
This is what we always try to do in the businesses we were involved in.
That's
by the way, also as consultants, which we are not only investors.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, that's these insights can be applied to any business. And the more business leaders I'm talking to, everybody's saying similar things, where every crisis, if you look at it from different point of view, has opportunities. And as you said, like, if you are objective enough to ask these questions and sort of restructure the business or reinvent yourself or add new USPs, there are still quite a few opportunities in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, even if there is not a specific USP right now, you can come up with one.
Yeah.
Because at some point you might eventually have a valuable foundation with which you can do something.
Exactly.
Or which the people or the management or the previous owners haven't thought of. And this is something which you really can develop.
Yeah.
But at some point, or at least initially, you always have to ask these questions.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much. That's all the time we had. And, this was a very interesting conversation going behind the airline, behind the scenes in the airline industry, and sort of learning how things are done in that industry. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, if somebody wants to reach out, how can they connect with you?
We have, first of all, my email address, which is peteroncken@introaviation.com, or via my LinkedIn account as well, which is always reachable. It's Peter Oncken.
Awesome, great.
And so I look forward to, and we are always happy to help others to make them part of our success story, and reach out if there's anything we can do.
For sure. We'll put those links in the show notes so that people can reach out easily.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much.
Manuj, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.